Coming up, a popular museum in Phoenix, Arizona has a new name. We take you there. Plus, we learn about the co-founder of Native Americans in Philanthropy and more on a California tribe's fight for water rights. We have those interviews, plus headlines ahead on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amadawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We start in the world of sports with a big boost for the Haudenosaunee. President Joe Biden wants the indigenous nation that invented lacrosse to play the game under its own flag in the Olympics. The International Olympic Committee added lacrosse to the 2028 Games, but IOC rules state that athletes must be part of an official National Olympic Committee team. Biden is now throwing his weight behind the effort to change the rules and allowing the New York and Ontario-based nation to field its own squad. The Haudenosaunee Nationals men's team is currently ranked third in the world. In California, a historic land return has taken place. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife will transfer over 40 acres of the Mount Whitney Fish Hatchery to the Fort Independence Indian community of Paiute Indians. This is the department's first ever land return to a California tribe. Tribal Chairman Carl Dahlberg said these lands have always been sacred to their people, and they hope to bring back history and knowledge to the community. Moving to Nevada, a local tribe has decided not to challenge a lawsuit that allows lithium mining on sacred lands. For almost 3 years, tribes have been speaking out about the cultural importance of Thacker Pass. Currently, private company Lithium Americas is mining, which some say is critical to develop batteries for electric cars. Last month, a Nevada judge dismissed a lawsuit filed by the Reno Sparks Indian Colony to stop the project. In a press conference Tuesday, Tribal Chairman Arlen Melendez said he was disappointed about the dismissal.
It would be in the best interest if the mining was put on hold, but by the time you would get through to appeal, they would have already desecrated all of the sacred sites. So there's no sense trying to do that now. We were trying to orchestrate some injunctions in the early stages to stop it so that we could have proper consultation, but that never really happened. And so right now, an appeal doesn't really look likely at this time.
Melendez expressed his concern about development coming into such a remote location, as well as man camps that can see an increase in crime against Native people. Well, Indigenous communities are often hardest hit by climate change disruptions. And at the UN Climate Change Conference in Dubai, also known as COP28, advocates are working to make sure Indigenous voices are heard and heeded. The Indian Collective and the Indigenous Peoples Caucus are hosting what's called the Indigenous Peoples Pavilion at the conference. The groups plan to host 83 sessions throughout COP28. They seek to promote Indigenous-led solutions and a just transition away from fossil fuels, but their goals don't stop there.
Our message while being here is to urge nation states and parties to implement and honor Indigenous rights and self-determination throughout all negotiations.
COP28 runs through December 13th. For some, the fight to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline ended when the pipeline was built. But for the people of Standing Rock, that fight never ended. ICT's Amelia Schaefer visited with tribal leaders, contesting a new environmental impact statement process and vowing never to surrender.
I went up to Standing Rock and I visited Fort Yates, where the tribal council and tribal administration are located, and I spoke with several representatives from the tribe. We discussed the current environmental impact statement period that's going on. On the 1st and 2nd of November, there was a meeting in Bismarck that the tribe was upset with. It was supposed to be a public forum, but instead tribal members had to present identification to Bismarck law enforcement before they could enter. There was also a sign posted that said by invite only and no media allowed, which made many tribal representatives confused about what was supposed to be happening at the meeting. And the tribe is asking for a reevaluation of how public forums like this are held in the future. The 5 options for the future of the pipeline include denying the easement that allowed it to go through above Cannonball, North Dakota, which is less than a mile from the reservation boundary. Another option would be abandoning or completely removing the segment. Another would be granting the easement with no changes or with additional safety measures, or entirely rerouting that segment north of Bismarck. The tribal leaders I spoke with are determined on never giving up on this. The ideal outcome would be for the pipeline to not cross over the lands at all.
And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. A mainstay museum and archaeological site in the Phoenix, Arizona Valley has a major change to its name and look. I had the chance to visit recently. Take a look. These signs are brand new here at the Philanthropy Museum in Phoenix, Arizona. When this institution first opened in 1929, it was called the Pueblo Grande Museum.
I don't know the exact person who named it.
I spoke to Nicole Armstrong Best, who is Sedavaki's administrator. Earlier this year in April, the Phoenix Parks and Recreation Board voted unanimously to change the name. Then, months later, leaders from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community and the Gila River Indian Community came together to celebrate.
And I just think it's important for the future of our young people growing up and the generations to come to know and see what their tie was to this whole area when they have to leave our communities and they come into these areas to know this was our Aboriginal lands.
This area is over 1,500 years old, giving us just a small glimpse of the lives the Hohokam people lived long ago.
So basically this was an ancestral village. It was much bigger than the actual piece that we have preserved today. We have preserved basically 3 features. The ceremonial house or platform mound, which was originally 3 stories high, football field wide. We only have 2 stories left, and we are continuously fixing it because it is adobe. We have also saved a ball court. The ball court was another gathering place. There were games played there. We don't know what those games were, but there was also the meeting, trading, marketplace area. And what happened, the archaeologists tell us, is that over time, they changed from using the ball courts and moved into using the platform mounds for the same kind of ceremony. And then we have also preserved 2 segments of the canals that are behind us. So the ancestral Artham created the most extensive canal system in North America. And that is one of the reasons that the city of Phoenix is actually built here, because the Euro-American settlers used the canals systems and the alignments that were already here.
As you first enter the museum doors, a new mural by Thomas Breeze Marcus connects the present-day Otham to this village of their ancestors. There's also a new exhibit called What's in Our Name?
We've highlighted where we were, because we've been in business for over 94 years. The 30s and 40s, the value system at that point was not great. So we wanted to highlight that we have changed. So there's a lot of those old images in there, and then the new images. We also wanted to talk about the change in our interpretive philosophy. So we have a section that talks about here's the old sign that we had, and here's the new sign, and what that change means and why it was important at the granular level.
I asked Armstrong Best about some of the reactions she has heard from visitors who learn about the genius of these people.
They are amazed. This is hidden history, and we're trying to change that. People don't realize 70% of the people who come through our doors are not from Phoenix. So we have a huge tourist attendance, and that's why we needed to make that connection to the contemporary communities, because it's an archaeological site, but it's living and important to the current Optum peoples, right? And so we want people to know that this is an amazing site. These people were amazing engineers and artists, and their descendants are just down the road, right? And please go visit, because they also have wonderful museums. The Hugum Key and the Hugum Heritage Center, and go down to Sells, Arizona, has a wonderful museum down there if you want to learn more. So that's my hope, is that we can get that message across and get Phoenix residents to come visit. I think a lot of people who move to Phoenix don't understand that there is deep history here, and it starts with the ancestors. It starts right here, and then the settlers built on the accomplishments of the ancestors. So that's the message that I'd like to get across to our visitors.
Reporting from Phoenix, Arizona, Aaliyah Chavez, ICT News. For those in Phoenix, the Sedevaki Museum will open its doors to its annual Indian and Young Artists Market this weekend. The event on December 9th and 10th is free for Indigenous people and military personnel. Lucille Echohawk serves on the Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs and has been a leader on many fronts, including in philanthropy and child welfare. She says she is always driven by an optimism that came from her parents. ICT's Stuart Huntington caught up with Echohawk recently. He asked if Colorado's Native American children in protective custody are better off today than when she began her work.
Overall, yes. The state, when I first moved here all those years ago, the state was virtually not in any compliance with the Indian Child Welfare Act. And so the Denver Indian Family Resource Center focuses on the 7 counties of Metro Denver, where the Indian children and their families were overrepresented in the public child welfare system when I came here. And that is lessened through the years. We're still challenged with Indian child welfare cases, but not to the degree we were at the time the organization came to be. It's been a steady, slow but steady progress that the counties and the state have made through the years. We've gained a lot of allies who now have experience and are part of the efforts to continue to move things forward. So we're very proud of that. Colorado also, for the last at least 2 years, or maybe it's year 3, I lose track, doing statewide ICWA training for caseworkers and their supervisors. And I don't know of any other state that does that.
I'm going to venture that I know the answer to this question, but do you think the work is done?
Oh, no, it's not done, because families continue to come to Denver, and Native people who travel from tribal lands often don't have a lot of financial resources and end up having issues when they get to sites like Greater Denver to be able to manage fiscally here because it's very expensive. Through the years, there are more efforts made to support families before they become cases, child welfare cases. And in the future, we hope there's going to be even more of that kind of thing. I mean, the vision of the Denver Indian Family Resource Center is that the day will come when there will be no Native children and families caught up in the public system, and we will be doing prevention services to keep them out of the system. That'll be our major work.
And you've done a lot of work in the field of philanthropy, and particularly natives in philanthropy.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It became very clear early on in the late 80s and early 90s that Native-led entities were not well represented as grantees of mainstream philanthropy. Most of the philanthropy to Indian country at that time was going to museums, universities, and non-Native-led entities. And so we founded Native Americans in Philanthropy to really heighten the statistics of how that money meant for Native people was not being funneled to Native-led entities. And through the years, that's improved. It's not great yet, but there's still a lot of efforts being made to really funnel more resources from mainstream philanthropy into Indian country. I'm very proud of the state of Colorado and our philanthropic community. They've really in recent years stepped up and are very, and they can get even more so, more supportive of Native causes here in Colorado.
And what is your vision for Native philanthropy? You said you had a vision for the end game when there were no more children in the system. What's the end game when there's no more need for philanthropic work in Indian country?
Well, I would say that there will never be not a need, but that there will be more Native people involved directly in philanthropy, in decision making for where grant funds go. And there's been some progress in that area. There are more Native people either working as trustees of private foundations and or in staff positions. But it's been a long time coming, and it's not where it needs to be. But we're making progress, and that's the case here in Colorado too. I'm glad that we're part of the movement forward in the right direction. But mainstream philanthropy across this country needs to do much more than they do.
You generally are optimistic.
I think that's how our parents raised us.
Yeah.
Our 5 siblings were optimists, because I think it takes more energy to be depressed. But if you've always got a forward-looking vision, it excites you and gives you energy. You can work harder and do more.
Lucille Echohawk, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
In California, the Owens Valley Indian Water Commission is still fighting for their rights to their ancestral land and waterways. A battle with the government and the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power continues on after decades. The tribes and the commission continue their efforts and demonstrations to this day. ICT's Paris Wise has the story.
The Owens Valley Indian Water Commission holds an annual Walk for Water, Resilience, and Awareness. This year's walk took place along the Los Angeles River with allies and members of the commission, some of which have been part of the ongoing fight for water rights for decades.
Manahui Nanine Terry Red Owl, Numanu Payahupue Nukimatu. That means hello, my name is Terry Red Owl. I come from Payahunadu, which is the land of the flowing water, or the place where the water always flows. And I'm the executive director of the Owens Valley Indian Water Commission. I've been with them since 1994, and we're a tribal consortium that represents the Bishop Paiute Tribe, Big Pine Paiute Tribe of the Owens Valley, and the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone Reservation. Been working on water rights, water protection, land back, food sovereignty issues for many, many years now. And so we've had this relationship with water. We have a long history with water. We have documented use of hand digging these massive waterways using sticks, using mahogany poles, and we would move the water slowly across the land, and we would use that water to grow our plants that we subsisted on. That use was interrupted around about the 1850s is when we started having contact in our valley with people that were coming through for gold mining and such. We had a lot of mines in our area as well. When the miners came, the cattlemen came, and they started overtaking our fields and pushing us off of our lands. And then we were eventually marched out of our homelands in July of 1863 during the hottest time of the year on foot down to Fort Tejon, which is about a 300-mile march. And when we left, then it really gave the settlers and the ranchers the opportunity to move in and claim those lands. And they did, and they started using our waterways. And then eventually agents for the city of Los Angeles discovered our homelands and came up and realized that, hey, we can start staking claim to this land and to this water. And when they did, we became displaced even more, because when we came back from Fort Tejon, from that march, that forced march by the United States Cavalry, we started working for the farmers and the ranchers. And then when Los Angeles came in and they wanted to claim the groundwater rights, they started buying up all those farms and ranches. And then we were displaced because we were living on those ranches. We were working for the ranches, and they really didn't know what to do with us. And so the United States government set land aside for us. We had a 67,000 acre tract of land that was set aside. They had purchased lands, 2,800 acres of lands here and there. We also had individual Indians that owned Indian allotments. And so when Los Angeles was in the process of buying up these lands, they started working with the United States government. And so we trusted them. And so a lot of our people did sell. And our research shows that there was 4,400 acres of land that Los Angeles bought. And when they bought those lands from these allottees, they paid them about 1/2 of what they were paying the white landowners. And these are lands, again, most of them had water. In 1937, they got this act of Congress passed that authorized this land exchange. And in that land exchange, the United States government traded almost 3,000 acres of land, so 2,913 acres of land, in exchange for 1,340 acres of land. So we got less than half the acreage in that land exchange. And importantly, too, to note is that there was water rights associated with those lands that were traded. And so the parties were supposed to trade the land, the water, and the mineral rights. But then Los Angeles suddenly realized they couldn't do that without taking it to a vote of their city voters. They needed a 2/3 vote to do that. And so they're like, well, we don't want to stop the land exchange, so we'll just go ahead and trade, and we'll just based on some shares that the United States government owned in these canal companies, we'll deliver that water to the boundaries of the reservation. Each party will retain the water rights to the lands that were traded, and at a future date, we'll work out a trade or a way to settle those water rights. And that land exchange was concluded in 1939, and I'm here today in 2023, and those water rights have still not been resolved. We were in negotiations in the 1990s to settle the water rights claims. We had a federal water rights negotiation team that was appointed, and we were negotiating with the City of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. However, the settlement agreement that the feds negotiated on our behalf would have essentially been a paper water right, and it would have been tied to lands that we no longer have access to, and we wouldn't be able to go out there and access that water and move it to our existing reservations and the places that we need to use the water. And what we're really seeking is we need resolution on land. Like, land is our biggest issue. It's our most challenging social issue that we deal with. And so because we feel like the city of Los Angeles had a major hand in displacing us from our lands and having lands removed that were set aside specifically for the indigenous people, and the United States government allowing those things to happen, that they all have a responsibility to help make us a little bit more whole as far as land goes. And then with that, water comes. I believe the water will come if we have land.
In Southern California, Paris Wise, ICT News.
Well, ICT invites you to be part of something special. Each week, we're taking on a different topic important to Indigenous people and to you, our viewers and readers. Find the link at ictnews.org to sign up for our e-weekly newsletter, which is emailed on Thursdays. We are covering food, business, economic development, arts and culture, and for December, we're working on a very special holiday edition. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.